So my name is Thomas Donia. I'm Director of Operations for DGB Group. We are a Netherlands-based project developer of carbon projects and other nature-based solutions, listed on the Amsterdam Stock Exchange. And as Edith was saying, we have a number of projects. We're developing currently over a dozen projects, different methodologies, different countries. Currently, we work a lot in Africa. And I think listening to all the other speakers also today, I think the perspective is very much, or has been very much in the discourse and the narrative on seeing carbon as a tradable asset, which of course makes sense, right? When we listen to the regulatory frameworks and CORSIA and requirements. But there are more value chains than just the tradable commodity that is being created in the project. And because when you work on the ground and when you look on the ground, right, the ground, whether it's the community or a local government or even other partners that you may work with, right, they don't experience carbon as a market metric, right? They don't experience it as a tradable commodity. They might experience it as experiencing the effects, right, of carbon in the atmosphere, right, accumulating over time, maybe impacting local climatic conditions or creating prolonged droughts or changing maybe the rainy season, but they don't experience carbon as the market as we approach it here today. Now, how they do experience it, and this is what I meant with there are different value chains. So I'll take the example of a cookstove project in Kenya. There's a photo up here, a cookstove project in Kenya. So let's say that over 80% of Eastern Africa and also Central Africa, the domestic fuel use for domestic cooking is firewood. So most of the deforestation actually in Eastern Africa is for domestic use. It's not big timber. It's not large agricultural soy companies. It's domestic use. And what this means is that when we introduce a cookstove, which is a relatively simple device that can save 50% of fuel needs to achieve the same results. So essentially, you need 50% less firewood to get your meal cooked or meals cooked every day. Now, what does that mean? So let's say that you are responsible, right, for the cooking in that household. So this is really on a micro level. Either you buy that firewood, right, maybe from a vendor on the street or somewhere around town, or you gather it. So let's say in the first instance, if you buy that firewood on the street, and now all of a sudden you are provided with a solution, right, via carbon finance, you're provided with a solution where you've just cut, right, your costs for fuel for cooking in half. So imagine you go home right after the conference and you find a letter in the mail, right, which says from your energy company, dear customer, we've cut the prices in half, right, for your domestic energy consumption. So what that means is there's a direct impact on the household spend, right, that becomes available for that particular household. So it means that by introducing a cookstove technology, if you buy your firewood, there is a direct cash benefit for the individuals using those cookstoves. Now, the other option is that you may not want to, or maybe you cannot buy your firewood, you may not have access, is that you gather it, which is very common. When you travel in Africa, probably in India, the same, right? You will see loads of people carrying around firewood. The problem, of course, is that the rest of the village in the county also needs to gather firewood, because remember the 80%. So everybody has to go to the same places, walk the kilometers to go to that forest, right, and collect that firewood. Again, by cutting that amount that you need in half by 50%, all of a sudden it creates time available for you to maybe spend on other value-adding activities. A lot of these households are also farmers, so value-adding activities on the farm or otherwise. I think two things are important to highlight is that, so these are, of course, additional value chains. Now the first is that different methodologies have different requirements or slightly different requirements on how to report on these. So in this particular example of the cook stoves, under gold standard, we actually we quantify, we measure, and we report on these parameters. So we report on increase of household income as a result of this particular project. We also report on increase of time available for other value-adding activities. We report this on an annual basis to the gold standard and for the project. And the last thing is that I'll say is that these value chains are not driven out of philanthropy. We're not an NGO. We are a commercial project developer. Of course, we want to make it economically work. However, if I don't provide these particular value drivers for the users on the ground, ultimately the product that we produce, which is the carbon credit, which ultimately is the tradable asset, it won't be produced. So again, it's not out of philanthropy, but it's an economic necessity, is that we create that value and that value chain on the ground for the users of this particular technology. In reforestation projects, the concepts are similar, but the implementation is different, but the ideas are the same, and we need those for us as a project developer to be able to deliver that product reliably over time.